Starting off the show, an interview with the highly talented Addi Miyako, featuring her whimsical color illustrations and Botan Tarot deck.
And welcome back, everybody. And of course, this is going to be our first interview of the day, and we have the amazing Addi Miyako. Is that correct?
Miyako.
Miyako. Okay, so thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
And we definitely want to thank you so much for taking the time out to do this interview with us. But I guess before we get started, I definitely wanted to congratulate you on recently releasing your a Botan Tarot deck, which is amazing and just looks amazing from everything that I've seen so far.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's been a bit of a wild ride, and I don't know if I've fully felt the gravity of the situation.
Right.
Now that I finished all the shipment and stuff.
Yeah. No, I saw your Instagram stories and posts, and yeah, it just seemed like a very overwhelming task, but I'm very glad and happy for you to complete that.
Me too.
For folks in this case who are starting to get familiar with your work, could you just give us like a brief timeline of your art career so far?
Yeah, happy to. So I've been doing art my entire life. I was very much that artistic kid in class. And I did go to school for studio art, which was kind of just the broad painting and ceramics and things like that. But I graduated in 2010 in the middle of the recession. Wow. When I graduated, it was simply a matter of, can I get a job with health insurance?
Yeah, exactly.
And worked in retail for about 2 years, which completely drained me. At those who have worked in the service industry know you never know what your schedule is week to week. You have to work weekends, you have to work holidays. So then it wasn't until I got a job as a receptionist for a larger company that I finally got some schedule stability, which allowed me to reclaim some of my time and energy. And I think it took about 5 years after I had graduated before I picked up a pencil and started drawing again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it started with just challenging myself for a New Year's resolution to doodle one thing every day. It did not have to be a big masterpiece. It didn't have to be a well thought out sketch. It just had to be something. And it was an important exercise for me to build that creative momentum and inertia of just moving forward. And that quickly blossomed into, doing more commissions, doing watercolors, doing my first Kickstarter, tabling at Silicon Valley Comic-Con, doing art walks. So it kind of blew up very quickly from there. Yeah. I kind of got back into art in 2015. So by 2017, things were starting to take off a bit. And I was really at this crossroads with my life where I was trying to figure out, is this the path that I want to take? If I don't do it now, when am I going to regret not giving art more of my energy and time? And at that point, I was doing a lot of these very small watercolors that had rounded corners. And that's just because that was the paper that I had. And I didn't think much of it, but everyone always asked me, are these meant to be tarot cards? And at the time I kind of thought, I don't really know anything about tarot. So no. But that summer, a friend of mine was visiting and she said, well, I do tarot readings. Why don't I do one for you? And she did a reading for me. She walked me through the deck that she has. And it suddenly made so much sense to me. This is what tarot is. This whole time I had so many misunderstandings about it. That just left such an impression on me.
Right.
I just remembered thinking I need something I need to make something that inspires hope for me and represents that light. And so I ended up sketching and painting the sun, the moon, and the star, which are three like very recognizable tarot cards.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I really just started painting them when I felt like I needed them. So I felt like I needed temperance, so I painted temperance. I felt like I needed strength, so I painted strength. And about halfway through that, people started asking me, "Is this going to be available for purchase?
Right.
Are you actually making a deck?" So I did a version of the deck that's called a majors only deck. So tarot decks have two parts: the major and the minor arcana.
Right.
The major arcana is 22 cards. So I painted the first 22.
Oh, okay.
Launched that on Kickstarter with a very, very humble goal because I truly thought nobody's going to want this. This is such a niche, such a niche thing. But that Kickstarter, I think I ended up doing over 500% of my goal.
Yeah.
And, was able to produce the majors only version of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, of course, then started asking, where are the minors? Are you going to do them? Right. Which is another 56.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
It took me 4 months to do 22.
Yeah.
So I kept saying, I'm not doing a minor arcana. I'm exhausted from this.
Right.
There's so much creative fatigue and I want to do something else. I want to explore something else. So no, there's not going to be a minor arcana. And then I think it was beginning of last year, I ended up finding the book of Japanese children's stories that my grandmother used to read to me.
Oh, nice.
And was flipping through it. It's beautifully illustrated in watercolor. And so it's no wonder that I found my way to watercolor as an adult. Right. And took pretty much all of 2019 to paint all 56 cards.
Oh, wow.
And then at the beginning of this year, launched it on Kickstarter as a complete deck. I hit launch at like 11:30 at night and went to bed.
Yeah.
Like, I just need to sleep. And then woke up to seeing, just the email notifications of like, you got your first backer, you hit your goal, you hit 200% of your goal. And it was, what is happening? I think it broke.
Oh, man.
So yeah, the success was everything that I could have dreamed of. It also allowed me to make 2 different colors of the deck, which I never would have thought that I could do.
Going back to what you said earlier about kind of like the watercolor being like the thing that always kind of drew you in and inspired you, were there any moments that while you were kind of trying to develop your own art style, did you have a period where you did try to do different mediums, like either like anime or abstract or even like 3D work, just to kind of just see if any of those different art styles kind of called out to you, or was it more that you kind of just stuck with watercolor and your distinct style?
It's really funny that you ask that because I mentioned that I studied art in school and they actually didn't have watercolor at my school. And so I'm self-taught in watercolor, but because I studied Japanese, I knew how to do ink painting. And the art classes that I had to take in order to achieve my degree included, a lot of acrylic painting. The advanced painting classes, they were pretty much like, you just do your own thing and make sure you finish 3 paintings by the end of the quarter. But there was no formal instruction for watercolor. The funny part about coming back to watercolor was that I did it out of spite the first time.
Oh, wow.
Because I was painting, my acrylic paintings were all these like ladies with flowers. And because I had just come back from Japan, I had learned about something called hana kotoba, which is flower language, where they use flowers to symbolize the things that they can't say. Japanese is very much about the unspoken as it is the spoken.
Right.
And during a critique, a professor called my work Hawaiian kitschy.
Oh.
And he was just like, I don't like this. It's too pretty. It's too soft. He was very much into like the very like moody, dark, grungy paintings that my peers were making. And he was not about my like lovely little flower paintings over here.
Right.
And I just remember being so angry when I got back to my dorm that I pulled out my inks and I had this like old watercolor set. And I was trying to emulate the fashion illustrations that I had seen in Japan. But I was painting these ladies that I thought were like these cool, like model / assassins.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, I'll show you soft and pretty. These are my little fashion assassins. And they go out and they will take care of any mean critiques that you have to say about my work.
Right.
And when it came down to a second critique, I brought those, but I didn't say what they were for.
Yeah.
And my professor loved them. He's just like, this is so cool. And I love the energy behind this. Wow. And I'm just sitting here like, yeah, I thought I would experiment a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think what kept drawing me back to watercolor was that it is a medium that you have to work quickly with in a way. But then you also have to sit and wait.
Yeah.
You can't just like keep working it. You have to let it dry at some point.
Yeah.
Plus, I keep mentioning I'm very type A, very organized. And with watercolor, sometimes it does what it does.
Right.
And you don't have control and you just have to let it be. The paint goes where it wants to go. Yeah. And it's a very good exercise for me, I think, just letting it be.
What are some of your hobbies when you aren't creating a year's worth of work, I guess?
It's funny when I saw that question in your email, I was like, what are my hobbies? Besides I do. So I'm very lucky that my family is one of the arts. So I grew up, dancing and singing. So, even though I'm not doing any of that formally right now, I love just doing it for fun on the side.
Right.
I still can't learn any of the TikTok dances, unfortunately. I'm just like, I can't. I do enjoy just, singing, dancing. I wouldn't consider myself a gamer, but I do enjoy video games just on a very, very light level. I think I haven't touched my Animal Crossing in a few weeks since I got so sucked in with my Kickstarter. So hopefully my island isn't covered in weeds right now.
Yeah.
And I also just really like watching like anime, movies, comic books, just kind of diving into those fantasy realms that I can draw further inspiration from.
Nice. Any favorite movies? It doesn't even have to be related to like any art inspiration, but just like any favorite movies that you can always put on just if you either just want to relax or just have something in the background.
It's always a Ghibli movie. I've seen all of them maybe 1,000 times, but I think there's such a wonderful way of storytelling in those movies that even if you're not like totally paying attention to them, you can still get the feeling from the narrative. There's also such a great like ASMR quality to the sound effects that they use in those films. Like when they're chopping cabbage, it's so delightful for me because it just reminds me of like being with my family and cooking together and stuff. So
cool. So another aspect I definitely wanted to cover is your amazing jacket art. How did you start coming up with those? What was the inspiration to kind of to try them out and then eventually just start doing commission work for them?
It started with I had purchased a denim jacket from a brand called Wuji Edward, the guy who runs Wuchi, is a really cool guy. He's got all this really cool gear on there. But the jacket is a denim jacket, and on the back in what kind of looks like large marker font, it says "Make Art." And I bought that at the end of 2018 with absolutely the intention of it being my like 2019 slogan, "Make Art." Right. And I definitely wanted to customize it. I didn't know if I wanted to do like just cover it in enamel pins. I have so many enamel pins.
Yeah.
And at some point, I think what I ended up doing was taking a photo of it with my iPad and then in Procreate drawing around it to kind of draft a design with, flowers and a crow. And I started looking up, okay, how do I actually make this happen? Right. And I mean, thank goodness for YouTube. You can learn anything on YouTube. But I figured out how to mix the right paints in order to create this jacket. And it would be sort of my one hero piece that I could wear when I'm at events. Mm-hmm. It's like my super treasured item. And it was only for me. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to worry about somebody else liking it.
Right.
But it was just so much fun. It's so much fun to paint on jackets. Mm. And it's so much fun to like make one and then give it to the person and then they try it on. And just thinking that someone is out there walking around with my artwork on their shoulders, it's just a really satisfying feeling.
Cool. So I definitely wanted to be respectful of your time. So I just had one more question for you. Mm-hmm. So throughout everything, and of course, I really have enjoyed this conversation with all the projects that you have mentioned. Has there been a few select that have been your favorite projects to work on? And if so, have they been either solo projects or have there been any collaborative efforts as well?
The most obvious one that comes to mind is my Botan Tarot. Mm-hmm. And that one, definitely a solo project, unless you consider like my ancestors' influence as collaboration.
Right.
So, that one is a huge one for me. I've never done a project of that size before. Mm-hmm. And it's also been such an undertaking as far as like running a business. Mm-hmm. I thankfully picked up a lot of skill in communication and management through my, non-art jobs. Right. So I wasn't necessarily daunted by that, but it was just a lot of work.
Right.
And then as far as collaborative projects go, it's hard because I feel like I don't get an opportunity to collaborate a lot, especially now when we don't get to see people or like share ideas other than through email. Mm-hmm. One of the jackets that I did do it was a commission, but I would consider it a collaboration because the friend who commissioned it for me, she was actually the same friend who did the tarot reading for me.
Oh, nice.
Who inspired the tarot deck. Right. But so she's Filipino and she moved from California to New York. Mm-hmm. And she wanted this jacket that represented, her magic and her heritage. And so we were constantly bouncing ideas off of each other. Like, oh, okay, what if the jacket had this incorporation of the Golden Gate Bridge because you're from the Bay, but we also want the sun from the Philippine flag on there. Mm-hmm. And it was just a lot of like, mixing ideas together, and the energy was so good there. So even though it was hers and she gets that jacket, I would consider that project a collaboration just because most of the ideas were hers.
Yeah. Oh,
I was just executing it.
Yeah. She was the director and you were just kind of like the actor acting everything out.
Right.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I think that's always the rewarding part when you actually do have either a client or in this case, like a friend that you can draw that inspiration from. Thank you so much for your time. I wanted to see if you had anything else that you wanted to plug or mention before we head off.
Yeah. So this is the number one question that I've been getting since I did the Kickstarter is if the Botan Tarot is available for purchase. Mm-hmm. I do have extra stock, like the boxes behind me. That's like not even half of it.
Right.
So I do have tarot decks available for purchase. The next thing that I'm really excited to get back into is jackets. So trying to source some secondhand jackets wherever I can during this quarantine season.
Right.
So I'm definitely looking forward to doing some more jacket projects.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see what you come up with next, and definitely congrats again on your successful Kickstarter. And yeah,
thank you so much.
From everything I've seen, it just looks amazing. So I'm glad that you've gotten a great reception to it.
Thank you. It is a piece of my heart. So I'm just happy that people are being gentle with it.
That's all we can ask for as artists.
Right. It's like, it's a little piece of me. Please be nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and hopefully you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. So
yeah, it was fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Nando. Bye.
Take care.